Hello everyone, if you're new to my channel, consider liking and subscribing. It will make me feel wonderful if you do that. Thanks. By the way, I also have another Naruto and Luffy fanfiction channel. If you are interested, link is in the description.
Shadows and Serpentes by Alenthedragon. This is a fan fiction about what if Luffy eat a different devil fruit instead of the gum fruit. He will have the dragon fruit, model dragon of darkness and shadows. He is joined by Hancock, who is his age here, and has a different fruit as well. Hope you like it. Adios.
Rising infamy. With Garp ready to leave, his men efficiently rounded up the remaining fishman pirates, preparing them for transport. In the midst of this, Nami approached Jinbei, her expression one of quiet resolve. Jinbei, the only fish man who deserves to be set free is Hachi. He was the only one who showed me any kindness during those dark times. Jinbei nodded in agreement, appreciative of Nami's discernment. You have my word, Nami. Hachi will be sent back to Fishman Island where he can start anew. Jinbei signaled to Hachi, granting him the freedom he had earned through his actions. Hachi gave Jinbei a grateful look, promising to make the most of his second chance. As the marine ship prepared for departure, Garp approached Luffy and Hancock, his gruff demeanor softening slightly. Well, I'll be going now. Got duties to attend to. He paused, leveling a firm gaze at Luffy. Oh, and Luffy. Luffy perked up, only to be met with Garp's infamous fist of love crashing down on his head. That's for calling me a shitty old man and giving me more paperwork. Garp barked, though a hint of affection underscored his words. Rubbing his head, Luffy grinned sheepishly. All right, I'll keep it in mind. Garp then turned to Hancock, his tone softening further. Take care of my grandson, alright. I don't know how someone as charming as you ends up with him, but he needs you. Hancock, amused yet respectful of Garp's request, replied warmly, no problem, Mr. Garp. I promise to keep him safe. Garp nodded, satisfied, and turned back to Luffy, who was still nursing the bump on his head. By the way, those bastards from Cypher Pole have been gathering information on you two since you left the Grand Line, he warned, his expression turning serious. Luffy's eyes narrowed, understanding the implications. Figures. Looks like our crew will be going public soon. With Garp and Jinbei sailing away, Luffy and Hancock approached Pudding, who remained close to Sanji, her presence bringing a new dynamic to the group. Hancock started, her earlier anger replaced with sincerity. Look, Pudding, I'm sorry again for trying to attack you. So, what will you do now? Pudding sighed, glancing at Sanji and Kaya, who had been listening intently. Well, I've been talking with Sanji and Kaya, and I have a question for both of you. Luffy encouraged her, all right, speak up. Taking a deep breath, Pudding gathered her courage. Can I join your crew? The question lingered in the air, causing Luffy and Hancock to raise an eyebrow simultaneously. Luffy considered the implications. If Pudding joined them, it was only a matter of time before Big Mom discovered her whereabouts, undoubtedly bringing trouble upon them. Hancock spoke honestly. Look, Pudding, we appreciate your desire to join us, but this could lead to problems. Seeing the potential rejection, Pudding's voice turned desperate. Oh, please, I won't be a burden. I can fight, and I'm an excellent pastry chef. I could even work with Sanji in the kitchen. The mention of excellent pastry chef seemed to flip a switch. Before Luffy could voice any concern, much to his and Sanji's amusement, Hancock was already shaking Pudding's hand vigorously. Her eyes sparkled with excitement at the thought of more sweets. Welcome to the Shadow Dragon Pirates, Pudding. We'd be thrilled to have you. Luffy chuckled inwardly, reflecting on Hancock's notorious sweet tooth. She really loves sweets, maybe even more than Big Mom. He thought with a smile. With Hancock's enthusiastic endorsement, Luffy chimed in, all right, Pudding, welcome to the Shadow Dragon Pirates. You'll be Sanji's assistant. Sanji, ever the gentleman, beamed with pride, offering Pudding a welcoming nod. I'm looking forward to working with you, Pudding. We'll make the greatest dishes the Grand Line has ever seen. Kaya clapped her hands together. This is going to be fantastic. Our crew is really coming together perfectly. Pudding felt a relief wash over her, gratitude swelling within. Being part of this crew was more than just an escape, it was an opportunity to find friendship and a sense of belonging. Thank you, everyone. I promise I'll do my best, Pudding declared, her voice filled with sincerity and hope. As night fell over Kokoyashi village, a vibrant celebration erupted in honor of Arlong's defeat at Nami's hands. Lanterns glowed softly in the darkness, casting a warm, welcoming light over the festivities. Music filled the air, and laughter echoed through the streets. The members of the Shadow Dragon Pirates relished the moment. Alvida, Kuro, and Zoro were engrossed in a spirited drinking competition, mugs clinking and cheers rising with each round. Their antics drew a crowd of onlookers who cheered them on. In the midst of the merriment, Sanji and Pudding worked harmoniously, ensuring that the food flowed and satisfied the hungry revelers. Their teamwork hinted at the culinary masterpieces yet to come. Meanwhile, Kobe, Richie, Salome, and Kaya joined in the festivities, dancing and singing, caught up in the joy of the night. Usopp, never far from the center of attention, regaled the villagers with exaggerated tales of adventure and bravery, each story more unbelievable than the last, yet utterly captivating. But not all was light-hearted entertainment. In the clinic, Nami lay calmly as the village doctor carefully removed Arlong's mark. With each stroke, she felt the weight of her past lift a little more. "I'd like a new tattoo," she said quietly, envisioning a symbol of freedom and new beginnings. Back at the heart of the party, Luffy and Hancock enjoyed the revelry, wrapped in contentment. Hancock leaned toward him, her voice soft. "So tomorrow we set sail for Logia Town." "Yeah," Luffy replied, a mischievous glint in his eyes. "I've got a plan for when we get there." Intrigued, Hancock smiled. "Oh. What do you have in mind?" "We're going to announce to the world that we'll be the king and queen of the pirates," Luffy declared with confidence, gesturing grandly as he envisioned the scene. "And we'll do it at the very place where Roger was executed." Hancock beamed at the idea, her excitement mirroring his. "I like that, Luffy. It's bold and fitting." But in the back of his mind, Luffy harbored a private thought, one he'd yet to share. "And I'll do something else there," he quietly resolved, keeping his own counsel for now. As the music played on and the night deepened, Hancock leaned in, capturing Luffy's lips in a passionate kiss. It was a promise of solidarity and shared dreams, both savoring the connection they'd forged amidst chaos and adventure. As the festivities slowly wound down, the villagers and pirates alike cherished the night's memories. The next day promised new horizons, as the Shadow Dragon pirates set their sights on the Grand Line and whatever lay beyond it. The morning sun was just beginning to rise over Kokoyashi village as the crew of the Shadow's Sorrow buzzed with anticipation, ready to set sail for their next adventure. Luffy stood at the helm, excitement dancing in his eyes, but there was one key crew member missing. "Oi, Luffy, where's Nami?" Sanji asked, peering over the side of the ship and scanning the dock. "Don't worry, she'll be here soon," Luffy reassured him with confidence. Just then, Nami came into view, her expression serious as she sprinted toward the dock, causing confusion among the villagers. They couldn't understand why she seemed so intense. With a burst of energy, Nami transformed into her full panther mode, a beautiful and powerful creature racing toward the ship. The villagers watched, wide-eyed, as she leapt onto the deck with a fluid grace that left everyone momentarily stunned. In an instant, she reverted back to her human form, panting lightly from her sprint. With a mischievous grin, she lifted her shirt slightly, revealing her new tattoo, a vibrant windmill marked with a tangerine, a symbol of her newfound freedom and strength. Gasps of shock rippled through the villagers, but the Shadow Dragon pirates erupted in laughter and cheers. Nami's aling and humorous, and the crew quickly understood what she had done. As Nami stood there proudly, wallets and purses began to fall out of her clothing, cascading onto the deck with soft thuds. The villagers, realizing what had just happened, shouted in disbelief, "Nami, you little thief." Nami chuckled, unperturbed by the shouts, her eyes sparkling with delight. Luffy and the others continued to laugh, their good spirits undiminished. "Nice job, Nami. That's one way to say goodbye to the village," Luffy said, giving her a thumbs up. "Always gotta keep things interesting, right?" Nami replied, grinning at them. With everyone aboard and Nami's cheerful energy electrifying the atmosphere, Luffy took the helm. "All right, crew. Once more into the sea. Next stop, Logia Town." As the Shadow's Sorrow set sail, the crew reveled in the camaraderie that had brought them all together. Nami stood proud, her windmill and tangerine tattoo symbolizing her journey, once a prisoner of her past, now a free pirate charting her own course. 2 days into their journey, After a grueling training session led by Luffy and Hancock, the Shadow Dragon pirates found themselves lounging and relaxing aboard the Shadow's Sorrow. The sun blazed overhead, casting warm rays over the crew members. Kuro perched in the crow's nest, vigilant as always. Kaya was cozily nestled with a book, lost in its pages. Zoro took advantage of the calm atmosphere, napping lazily under the sun while Sanji and Pudding worked together in the kitchen, the delightful aroma of spices wafting through the air. Usopp busied himself making ammunition for his slingshot, meticulously crafting new gadgets. Meanwhile, Luffy, Nami, and Hancock lounged in the sun, enjoying the heat while Alvida deftly steered the ship. Kobe played nearby with Richie and Salome, their laughter adding a light-hearted charm to the scene. Just then, a news-coup bird flew in, dropping a fresh newspaper onto the deck. Nami snatched it up, her eyebrows furrowing immediately in annoyance at the price tag. They charge too much for these ridiculous papers, she complained as she flipped it open. Curiosity piqued, the crew began to gather around Nami, eager to hear the latest news. As she started reading aloud so everyone could hear, her voice echoed over the deck. Former members of the Yonko red-haired Shanks Monkey D. Luffy, and Boa Hancock start crew. They were spotted in the East Blue, and they recruited Alvida the Iron Mace, the former bounty hunter Roronoa Zoro, and even Kuro of the Thousand Plans, who was supposed to be dead. Murmurs spread among the crew, excitement building as Nami continued. This reporter also notes that they've recruited 2 girls as well, one with orange hair and the other with blonde hair, both possessing devil fruits. At that moment, 7 wanted posters tumbled out from the paper, fluttering to the deck. The crew stared at them, eyes wide with curiosity. Nami picked up the first 2 posters with a grin that quickly turned to disbelief as she read them. Shadow Dragon Monkey D. Luffy, wanted, dead or alive, 700 million berries. Nami exclaimed, her tone a mixture of shock and pride. And Snake Princess Boa Hancock, wanted, dead or alive, 660 million berries. Luffy puffed his chest out, a huge grin spreading across his face. I knew I was worth it, he proclaimed gleefully. Nami continued reading through the remaining posters, her excitement reaching a fever pitch. Alvida the Iron Mace, dead or alive, 30 million berries. Alvida gave a triumphant laugh. They should know better than to underestimate me. Kuro of the Thousand Plans, dead or alive, 40 million berries. Nami read, glancing up at Kuro, who nodded in satisfaction. Pirate Hunter Zoro, dead or alive, 25 million berries. Nami nearly stumbled over her words in surprise. Your bounty is pretty low, Zoro. Zoro merely grunted, stretching out a bit, I'm too busy sleeping to worry about it. Nami continued, Panther Lady Nami, dead or alive, 35 million berries. She smirked, reveling in her new notoriety. And last but not least, she announced dramatically, Thunder Woman Kaya, dead or alive, 50 million berries. Kaya held her wanted poster in disbelief, staring at the number printed across the page. Why is my bounty set at 50 million berries? She asked, her voice laced with confusion and frustration. Hancock, who stood nearby, offered a reassuring smile. Well, it's because of your devil fruit, the Guro Guro no Mi. You have immense power, and the world takes note of that. Just then, the commotion caught Sanji's attention, and he stepped out of the kitchen with Pudding by his side. Upon seeing the wanted posters, his face fell, and his shoulders slumped. No, why does the shitty swordsman and cat man get bounties like that, and I didn't? He lamented, looking utterly defeated. Luffy, eager to lighten the mood, spoke up. Well, it's simple, Sanji. Me and Hancock were already former high-ranking members of a Yonko's crew. Alvida and Kuro were already known throughout the East Blue as pirates. Zoro was a feared bounty hunter, Nami killed Arlong, and they must have gotten wind of Kaya's power when we were at the marine base. Sanji slumped into a corner, his sulking demeanor evident. But it's not fair, he whined, sounding almost childlike. Zoro chuckled, shaking his head knowingly. If the cook gets a bounty, I can see it now, the pervy cook. Pudding leaned against Sanji, trying to bolster his spirits. Don't worry, Sanji, you'll get your bounty eventually. You're already a hero in my eyes for what you do in the kitchen. With a mixture of pride and mischief, Sanji perked up ever so slightly, straightening his posture. You really think so, Pudding? As the crew continued to joke and share tales about their newfound fame and bounties, Kaya felt a wave of determination. I'll live up to this bounty. I won't let it define me, but I want to use my power for good. Luffy nodded enthusiastically. That's the spirit, Kaya. We're all in this together, and we'll prove to the world what we can do. As laughter erupted around the deck, a sense of unity blossomed among the crew. They were burgeoning legends in the making, each with their strengths and stories. Each bounty symbolized their growth and the adventures ahead. As the Shadow's Sorrow sailed steadily toward Logue Town, Luffy gathered his crew for a meeting on deck, the anticipation of approaching their final stop before the Grand Line electrifying the air. All right, everyone, Luffy called, rallying them around. We're approaching Logue Town. This is our last stop before we hit the Grand Line. Hancock stepped forward, her regal presence commanding attention. Yes, this is an important stop. We need to pick up crucial supplies here. Nami, you need to get a log pose, she instructed. Nami nodded, determined. I've got it, Hancock. I'll make sure we're ready for the Grand Line. Sanji, Pudding, make sure the kitchen is stocked, Luffy continued. We need enough supplies for our journey ahead. On it, Captain. Sanji responded, grinning as he glanced at Pudding, who nodded eagerly beside him. As the quartermaster, Zoro spoke next. All right, I'll make a list of other supplies we need, he agreed, though he quickly added, but I still need 2 more swords. Luffy smiled, retrieving a suitcase filled with 50 million berries and handing it to Zoro. This should cover everything, including your new blades. Seeing the generous sum, Nami couldn't help but feel a twinge of envy. She mumbled under her breath, why does that moss head get all that cash? Luffy chuckled, addressing the crew again. All right, that's it for the meeting. Oh, I almost forgot, the marine captain in Logue Town is named Smoker, and he has a logia devil fruit. If you see him, remember, all of you know or are close to mastering observation haki, but none of you have armament yet, so do not engage. Leave him to me or Hancock. He paused for a moment before continuing, and one more thing, Sanji, Pudding, and Nami, my cabin now. Hancock raised an eyebrow, curiosity flickering in her gaze. What's this about, Luffy? Don't worry, Luffy reassured with a playful grin. I just need to discuss some navigation and kitchen stuff. As Nami, Sanji, and Pudding followed Luffy into the captain's quarters, they couldn't help but feel a mix of curiosity and anticipation. Once inside, Luffy shut the door, ensuring their privacy. He motioned for them to take a seat as he retrieved 4 glasses and his favorite bottle of rum, pouring a generous amount for each of them. Sanji, intrigued by the unusual meeting, asked, so, what's this about, Luffy? Luffy grinned, his eyes glinting with excitement. It's simple. When we reach Logue Town, Hancock and I will go to Roger's place of execution. We're going to announce that we plan to rule the seas. We're not just going to copy Roger, we're going to surpass him. Hearing this, their eyes widened in surprise, but the sheer audacity of Luffy's declaration quickly sparked excitement within them. There's one more thing, though, and it stays in this room, Luffy continued, his voice steady and serious. Sanji, Pudding, and Nami nodded, leaning in with interest. I'm going to ask Hancock to marry me, Luffy revealed, his voice resonating with sincerity and resolve. The announcement left Nami, Sanji, and Pudding momentarily speechless. Sanji felt a pang of jealousy, but Pudding and Nami beamed with happiness for Luffy. Wow, Luffy, that's amazing! Pudding exclaimed, clapping her hands in delight. Yeah, congratulations, Nami added, her voice genuine and warm. But what about the plan leading up to this? Luffy nodded, explaining, Nami, you take Hancock out and distract her with shopping, a spa day, or whatever you want. Just make sure she doesn't suspect anything. Nami smirked mischievously, sensing an opportunity. Alright, but I'll need about 20 million berries for travel costs and activities. Luffy raised an eyebrow, feeling Nami's negotiating power. Hey, that's a lot. Nami replied with a sly grin, 10 million for the fun activities and another 10 million to keep the secret. Luffy sighed, resigned. Fine, man, Zoro was right, you are a money grabber. Turning to Sanji and Pudding, Luffy instructed, I want you two to prepare a feast. Pudding, I need you to make a one-of-a-kind dessert for Hancock. Sanji and Pudding nodded, understanding the significance of the task. We'll make sure it's a celebration to remember, Sanji promised. Luffy smiled, feeling grateful for his crew's support. Alright, that's it. But remember, if Hancock finds out about this, whoever told her is going on bread and water for a month. Is that clear? At the Marine headquarters in Logue Town, a sergeant rushed into the captain's office, urgency in his step. As he entered, he was met with a heavy haze of smoke that filled the room. Sitting at his desk, Captain Smoker was engrossed in his routine, his eyes slightly obscured behind the smoke from two lit cigars. Captain Smoker, we have a problem, the sergeant reported, his tone laced with anxiety. Smoker, calm and composed, responded, I know, Sergeant. So the Shadow Dragon and the Snake Princess are here, are they? A smirk played on his lips. If they think they can walk through my town and into the Grand Line, they are mistaken. Sir, should we call Admiral Aoki or contact Vice Admiral Garp for backup? The sergeant asked, concerned for his captain's safety. No, Smoker replied firmly. I will deal with this myself. This is my town, and I don't need any backup. Is that clear? His voice was authoritative, leaving no room for argument. Understood, sir. And where is Sergeant Tashigi? The sergeant inquired. She went to get her sword, Smoker said, flicking ash from one of his cigars. Have her contact me as soon as she gets back to base. Meanwhile, back at the docks in Logue Town, Luffy was with his crew, discussing the day's tasks. Okay, first, Zoro, Kuro, and Usopp will handle obtaining supplies. They nodded in agreement, ready to tackle the challenge. Zoro, get Usopp a rifle with a scope. The cash I've given you should cover everything, Luffy added. Sanji chimed in next, alright, Captain. Pudding and I will take care of shopping for food. Okay, sounds good, Luffy replied. But before they could leave, Sanji turned to Nami. Oh, Nami Swan, can I borrow your lion to help us carry the food? Nami nodded, although a sly smirk crossed her face, knowing Richie's mischievous tendencies. Just then, Richie approached Sanji, who with a whisper, said, I know you've been stealing meat from my kitchen, you flea bag. So you're going to carry the food. Understand. The lion, eyes wide, nodded nervously. Hancock observed the bustling crew with curiosity. What about the rest of us? She asked. Nami interjected, I thought you, me, Kaya, and Alvida would spend the day shopping and enjoying ourselves. Luffy nodded in agreement, looking at Hancock warmly. Yes, Hancock, you deserve a break. Meet me later at the execution place. Turning to Kobe, Luffy added, Kobe, you're with me. I have something to take care of here, and you'll be accompanying me. As Zoro, Kuro, and Usopp strolled through the bustling streets of Logue Town, Kuro broke the silence. So, I guess this is it for all the supplies. Zoro nodded in agreement. Yeah, that's all we need. Usopp struggled behind them, carrying the bulk of the supplies. He complained, hey, why do I have to carry all of this? With a smirk, Kuro replied, well, it's simple, long nose. Me and Zoro have bounties. If the Marines see us, it would be in our best interests if we weren't carrying heavy loads. Usopp sighed, muttering under his breath, man, he's a real jackass. Suddenly, a commotion erupted nearby, snapping their attention. Curiosity piquing, they moved closer to see what was happening. There, a young woman with blue hair was being harassed by two thugs, who had drawn their swords on her. Without a moment's hesitation, Zoro reached for his katana, prepared to spring into action. But before he could react, the girl swiftly drew her own sword and quickly disarmed her attackers with impressive skill. Kuro, taken aback, remarked to Zoro, she's not bad. Zoro nodded, impressed by her agility. As he glanced around, his eyes landed on a pair of glasses nearby, realizing they belonged to the girl, who was now searching for them. The moment she raised her head, her expression shifted to surprise, and Zoro found himself momentarily stunned. Kuina, he uttered, the name escaping his lips in a whisper. In his surprise he crushed the girl's glasses with his hand. Hey, you jackass. You broke my glasses, she exclaimed, annoyance flooding her voice. You owe me a new pair. Zoro was speechless, a mix of shock and disbelief washing over him. Kuro quickly intervened, sensing the tension. Okay, how much? Sorry, my friend is a little slow, he said, trying to smooth over the situation. It's 30,000 berries, she responded, crossing her arms defiantly. And my name is Tashigi, Sergeant Mayor Tashigi. Kuro felt a twinge of nervousness, noting that Tashigi didn't recognize either him or Zoro. He handed her the money without hesitation, and as Tashigi pocketed it, Zoro watched her, still trying to reconcile this unexpected encounter with his past. As they moved on, Usopp turned to Zoro, curiosity evident in his eyes. What just happened there? It was like you saw a ghost. Kuro also chimed in, yeah, you looked like you were in shock. Zoro finally spoke, a hint of nostalgia in his voice. She looked like my childhood friend, Kuina. We trained together when we were kids. I always thought she'd become a great swordsman. His thoughts lingered on the memories of their past and the bond they once shared. As they continued walking, Zoro's expression was contemplative, the remnants of their brief encounter heavy on his mind. The shadow of Kuina's memory seemed to chase him, but he pushed forward, determined to focus on their current mission. Let's keep moving, Zoro said, his tone steadying. We still have work to do. Zoro, Kuro, and Usopp entered a weapons shop in Logue Town, the scent of metal and oil filling the air. The owner lounged casually at the desk, ready to cater to any potential customers. Zoro stepped forward, exuding his characteristic confidence. Hey, I need 2 katanas, a scoped rifle, and some ammo for it, Zoro stated matter-of-factly. The owner nodded but suddenly paused mid-sentence, his eyes widening as he caught a glimpse of Zoro's prized katana. He started to breathe heavily, clearly struck by what he saw. My god, this can't be. Is that, Wado Ikimonji? The owner leaned forward, a mix of reverence and eagerness in his voice. My good man, I am prepared to give you 3 katanas, a scoped rifle, plus 300,000 berries for that sword. Zoro shook his head decisively. No chance. This blade is not for sale. Alright, how about 400,000 berries then? The owner pressed, but Zoro remained steadfast in his refusal. Not a chance, Zoro reiterated, crossing his arms. Okay, 800,000 berries. The owner pleaded, desperation edging into his tone. Kuro raised an eyebrow, intrigued by the interaction. Hey, old-timer, why are you so interested in my friend's katana? Just then, Tashigi entered the store, her presence shifting the mood. Oh, it's you 3. Thanks for the money for the glasses, she said, adjusting her newly repaired spectacles. Her gaze landed on Zoro's sword, and her eyes widened in disbelief. Oh my god, Wado Ikimonji. I can't believe it. Both Kuro and Usopp looked puzzled. Wado Ikimonji. They echoed in unison. Tashigi rushed to pull out a small book on swords, flipping through the pages. She turned to a page displaying an illustration of Zoro's katana. Here, Wado Ikimonji, a premium-grade blade worth over 10 million berries. This is an exceptional sword. Zoro shrugged nonchalantly, his grip tightening around the hilt of his katana. It's not for sale, and its worth doesn't matter to me. It's a reminder of my promise. The owner of the weapons shop simmered with irritation, glaring at Tashigi for ruining his chance to con Zoro out of his legendary blade. You've ruined everything. He spat, obviously frustrated. In a sudden outburst, he threw Tashigi's katana to her. She caught it reflexively, but in her clumsiness, she stumbled backward and landed in a pile of swords with a loud clang. Ow! She exclaimed, a bit embarrassed but unharmed. Zoro crossed his arms, watching with an amused glint in his eyes. Okay, old-timer, do you have any rifles and katanas to show me? Still grumpy from his earlier embarrassment, the owner begrudgingly replied, all right. The barrel over there has some swords on discount, and I can bring you some rifles to look at. As Zoro moved toward the barrel filled with bladed weapons, Usopp spotted a beautiful rifle hanging on the wall. What about that rifle? He pointed enthusiastically. The owner chuckled dismissively. Oh, come on. That's a new model from the Grand Line. It's accurate as hell, and instead of 1 bullet, it houses 5 rounds. It's worth over 5 million berries. I'll take it, Usopp said without hesitation, leaving the owner wide-eyed. What a steal. Meanwhile, Zoro rummaged through the barrel of katanas. His attention was suddenly drawn to a striking sword with a red hilt. He pulled it from the pile, inspecting it closely. Tashigi, brushing herself off and regaining her composure, rushed over, her eyes widening. It can't be. Is that, the Sandai Kitetsu? Kuro's interest was piqued as he joined Zoro to take a closer look. I thought only low-quality blades were in that barrel. Tashigi flipped through her book once more, her voice filled with awe as she found the relevant page. No, it is a Sandai Kidetsu. It's a premium blade worth over 5 million berries. The shop owner now looked increasingly anxious. I can't sell you that. You're right, a blade like that shouldn't be up for sale at 50,000 berries, Tashigi stated firmly. The owner shot back defensively, no, it's not that. Zoro, fixated on the katana and sensing its heavy aura, interjected. It's cursed. The owner nodded, a touch of dread flickering in his eyes. Yes, but how did you know? I felt it, Zoro replied, a confident smile forming. I'll take it. The shop owner blinked in disbelief, visibly shaken by Zoro's straightforwardness. You want a cursed blade. Zoro, feeling confident with his new Sandai Kidetsu, grinned eagerly. Let's see what's stronger, the blade's curse or my luck. With determination, he tossed the cursed sword into the air, watching it spin as it ascended. The owner, Tashigi, and Usopp went into a panic, eyes wide with disbelief. What are you doing? The owner shouted, clearly alarmed. Kuro maintained his composure, curious to see what Zoro would do next. As the Sandai Kidetsu spun through the air, Zoro extended his arm beneath it, it whirled dangerously close, suspense hanging in the air. Just as it looked like it might slice down upon his arm, it narrowly missed and pierced the floor with a sharp thud. Zoro smiled triumphantly, looks like my luck is stronger. With a sense of triumph and apostolic flair, he declared, okay, I still need another katana. Hastily, the owner, still recovering from the shock, said, wait a second. He rushed up the stairs, returning moments later with a katana featuring an elegant black hilt. This is Wazama no Yubashiri. It's the best blade I have, please take it. Zoro regarded the katana thoughtfully, nodding his appreciation. Thanks, old man, but. The owner added quickly, but nothing. I'm sorry for trying to scam you earlier. Take it, and the Sandai Kidetsu, they're free. Just pay for the rifle. Zoro acknowledged the offer, accepting the additional sword with gratitude. After paying for the rifle, he, Kuro, and Usopp exited the shop, leaving a wide-eyed Tashigi behind. Once outside, Tashigi shook her head in disbelief. Who are those guys? She muttered to herself, still processing the encounter. Zoro, Kuro, and Usopp stood just outside the shop, weapons in hand, feeling a surge of energy and determination. Let's go find the others, Zoro said, eager to rejoin the crew and show off their new gear. As they walked away from the weapons shop, Kuro, who had been observing Zoro with a smirk, spoke up. An impression back there. I'm sure she'll remember you. On the bustling streets of Logue Town's market, Sanji and Pudding navigated through the throngs of vendors and shoppers, Nami's lion, Richie, dutifully trotting alongside them, laden with bags like a packhorse. Richie bore his load with a hint of indignity, conscious of the consequences of his past kitchen thefts, now evident after Sanji identified him as the culprit. Sanji, having recently scored a prized bluefin elephant tuna in a heated cooking contest, was brimming with pride. Pudding, impressed by Sanji's culinary prowess, couldn't help but comment, wow, Sanji, that was impressive. You really beat the other chefs like it was nothing. Her words propelled Sanji into his usual flirtatious mode. Oh, it was no problem, Pudding-chan. He replied, hearts practically fluttering around his eyes. As they strolled along, Pudding asked earnestly, can you teach me how to cook like you? I mean, since we'll be working together, I only know how to make cakes and pastries. Still somewhat in his romantic haze, Sanji replied, no problem, Pudding-chan. But I must ask you something. Shifting to a slightly more serious tone, he continued, Luffy told me you have a devil fruit. Is that true? Pudding nodded, acknowledging her abilities. Yes, as you know, besides my third eye, I have the Memo no Mi. It's a paramesha-type devil fruit that allows me to turn people's memories into strips of film and manipulate them. I used it on Hancock once to erase her memory of Luffy, but for some reason, it backfired. Sanji nodded understandingly. Don't worry, Pudding-chan. Hancock has already forgotten about that, and you're with us now. Pudding smiled, her heart warmed by Sanji's acceptance and reassurance. Thank you, Sanji, she said sweetly, leaning in to plant a grateful kiss on his cheek. The unexpected gesture sent a rush of color to Sanji's face, leaving him as red as a tomato. He was momentarily speechless, floating on cloud nine. Just then, Pudding noticed something out of the corner of her eye. Richie was eyeing the precious elephant tuna precariously. Alarmed, she rushed over and gave the lion a gentle but firm swat on the head. "Hey, don't even think about it, mister." Richie, caught with his snout twitching in the direction of the fish, recoiled sheepishly, letting out a resigned huff as if to say he'd been caught again. "Oh, Richie, you naughty lion." Pudding scolded playfully, shaking her head. "You'll get your share, but not before dinner." In another corner of bustling Logue Town, Luffy and Kobe made their way through the crowd. As they walked, Kobe's curiosity got the better of him. "Luffy, where are we going?" Luffy grinned, his usual adventurous spirit shining through. "We're heading to Gold Roger's bar to see a friend of mine. His name is Raoul, and he can sell us several log poses. He's connected to the black market." Kobe, ever cautious, asked, "Do you think we can trust him, Luffy?" "Of course," Luffy assured him with a relaxed smile. "Don't worry, he's harmless. Oh, by the way, Kobe, I have to commend you. You're getting stronger. You've awakened your observation haki." Kobe beamed at the compliment from his mentor. "Thanks, Luffy. I've also had an idea on how to use my devil fruit." Luffy raised an eyebrow, curious. "Oh, what are you working on?" Kobe explained, "Well, since my body is rubber, I thought if I stretch my blood vessels and speed up my blood flow, I could increase my speed." Luffy chuckled, clearly impressed. "Nice, Kobe. You sure are creative. We'll test it out when we leave Logue Town." Kobe nodded enthusiastically as they approached their destination. They entered Gold Roger's bar, finding it mostly empty except for an old man drinking quietly. "Raoul, it's me, Luffy," Luffy shouted, his voice full of warmth. Raoul looked up, a wide grin spreading across his weathered face. "Luffy. Hey, nice to see you." Luffy gestured to Kobe, introducing him. "Raoul, this is my cabin boy and apprentice, Kobe." Kobe nodded politely, slightly awed by meeting another of Luffy's colorful acquaintances. Luffy got straight to business. "I need 5 log poses, and do you have some gold rings as well?" Kobe, curious about the request, asked, "Why do you need a ring?" Luffy leaned closer, whispering conspiratorially, "I'm going to ask Hancock to marry me today." This revelation left Kobe momentarily stunned. "What? Aren't you too young to get married?" Luffy simply shrugged with a nonchalant grin. "We're not getting married right away. I have a special place in mind for that." Just then, Raoul emerged from the back, carrying 5 log poses and a selection of gold rings. Luffy's gaze landed on a stunning ring with 3 red rubies, and he picked it up. "Good choice," Raoul said approvingly. "That will be 100 million berries." Luffy winced playfully. "Man, you really drive a hard bargain." He handed over the money, accepting the log poses and ring. As they turned to leave, Raoul called out one last piece of information. "Oh, Luffy, that Marine captain knows you're here." Luffy's eyes flashed with a mischievous glint. "Good, let him come. This will be fun." As they exited the bar, Kobe turned to Luffy, a serious expression on his face. "Luffy, I can sense several people in the alleys." Luffy smiled knowingly. "Oh, that's the Marines. They've been following us for some time. But don't worry about the grunts, you can handle them. As for Smoker, he thinks just because he's a logia, he's untouchable." Just then, from the shadows of the alley, Smoker emerged, his presence imposing. "Shadow Dragon Luffy, you are under arrest," he declared, his voice echoing with authority. As if on cue, several Marines popped out from their hiding spots, surrounding Luffy and Kobe. However, to everyone's shock, Luffy began to laugh heartily. "Oh man, Smokey, you really think this is enough to capture me? You just brought lambs to be slaughtered," he taunted, sparking panic among the Marines. One of the Marines, in a frantic attempt to act quickly, fired his rifle at Luffy. But with a calm demeanor, Luffy covered his arm in armament haki and casually caught the bullet as if it were a mere pebble. With a flick of his wrist, he sent the bullet back, missing the Marine but piercing through a nearby wall. The remaining Marines stood frozen in horror, unsure of what to do next. Seizing the moment, Smoker activated his devil fruit powers, charging towards Luffy with his fist shrouded in smoke. "This ends now," he shouted. But once again, Luffy's confidence shone through. He caught Smoker's punch effortlessly, treating the attack like it was nothing. My turn, he declared. With a swift movement, Luffy covered his other arm in armament haki and delivered a powerful punch to Smoker's face. The impact was immense, launching him back into a building and breaking his nose as well. In the chaos, Luffy felt the surge of power within him. He unleashed his Conqueror's haki, a wave of immense force radiating outwards. The pressure knocked out the remaining Marines surrounding them, leaving only Smoker struggling to regroup. Luffy smiled, a glint of mischief in his eyes as he looked at the fallen Marines. Well, that was fun. Now, are we going to continue with our day, or do I still have to deal with Smokey here? Kobe watched in awe as Luffy effortlessly asserted his dominance, confidence racing through him. That was incredible, Luffy, he exclaimed. Smoker slowly got to his feet, wiping blood from his face, clearly stunned but determined. You might have won this round, pirate, but I won't give up. Luffy chuckled, a carefree look upon his face. I'd expect nothing less from you, Smokey. But for now, it looks like you've got more pressing matters to deal with, like getting back up. Oh, and you should have somebody look at that nose. With that, Luffy turned away, and Kobe followed closely behind, ready to continue their day in Logue Town. Luffy brought an air of triumph around them, and despite the confrontation, he felt energized and invigorated for the challenges ahead. As they left the scene, Luffy glanced Smoker, see you again sometime. In a bustling shop in Logue Town, Hancock, her pet snake Salome, Alvida, and Kaya watched as Nami engaged in an animated argument with the store owner. Having purchased nearly every item in the store, Nami was now demanding an 80% discount, her negotiation skills on full display. Hancock turned to Kaya and Alvida, grinning. Man, she sure knows how to negotiate. Kaya sighed, shaking her head. Yeah, it's quite a talent at this point. Just as Nami finished bargaining her way to what seemed like the impossible deal, the group exited the store, arms laden with clothes, all while Salome slithered beside Hancock. Kaya turned to Nami, who looked triumphantly pleased with her haul. Do we really need all these clothes? Of course we do, Nami replied, her enthusiasm infectious. Alvida chimed in with a comical tone, yeah, I'm sure that we need over 50 dresses. As they made their way to the center of Logue Town, Hancock's demeanor shifted slightly. Using her observation haki, she sensed something amiss. There were Marines nearby trying to ambush them. However, she also felt a familiar presence approaching. A smile crept across her face as she recognized the auras. Well, it looks like they're here. Alvida, her curiosity piqued, asked, who is here? Hancock replied, one is my and Luffy's adoptive older sister, and the other two are Luffy's parents. Kaya's eyes widened in disbelief. What? Dragon and Lilith are here. Hancock nodded, her excitement palpable. Yes, they're nearby. Nami, still clutching her newly acquired items, looked puzzled. Your adoptive older sister. Hancock's smile widened. Yes, we rescued her from her father. She was actually the first person we recruited in our crew. She is super strong and has all 3 types of haki, plus a very powerful devil fruit. Nami, intrigued, asked, who is she? She is the daughter of the Yonko Kaido. Her name is Yamato. Luffy and I told her to meet us here, Hancock explained. The atmosphere shifted sharply as several Marines surrounded them. The sergeant stepped forward, his tone authoritative and brimming with confidence. Snake Princess Boa Hancock, Iron Mace Alvida, Thunder Woman Kaya, and Panther Lady Nami, you are under arrest. Surrender now. Hancock, unfazed and still in a good mood, smirked at the sergeant. Oh please, do you really think you grunts can capture me? I'm giving you a chance to get out of my way, or else. The sergeant's aggravation grew. You insolent pirate, how dare you? We have you outnumbered, there are 4 of you and 30 of us. Hancock only smiled slyly. No, there are 5. She gestured behind him. The sergeant turned, just in time to see a massive iron club barreling towards him. It struck him with tremendous force, sending him flying through the air. The remaining Marines, startled and scrambling, looked to see who, or what, had attacked them. Emerging from the shadows was a woman towering at 263 centimeters tall, clad in a stylish sleeveless kimono. Her white hair faded into aqua green and blue as it flowed down her back. She also had horns on the top of her head which are mostly red, but gradually become more flesh-colored toward the base. She wielded a massive spiked club with ease and turned to Hancock with a beaming smile. "Little sis, there you are." Hancock's face lit up as her eyes sparkled with joy upon seeing Yamato. "Yamato!" she exclaimed. With a sudden wave of conqueror's haki unleashed from Hancock, the remaining Marines collapsed, knocked unconscious by the sheer force of it. Once the chaos settled, Yamato looked at her younger adoptive sister with a mix of happiness and concern. "I'm sorry I'm late," she said, rushing to hug Hancock tightly. However, as Yamato's embrace tightened, Hancock suddenly found herself gasping for air. Okay, you're choking me," she laughed, trying to catch her breath as Yamato finally released her. "I'm just so glad to see you," Yamato replied, highlighting the bond they shared. Hancock glanced toward Nami, Alvida, and Kaya, introducing them. "Girls, this is Yamato. Yamato, these are Nami, Alvida, and Kaya. Nice to meet you," Nami said politely, taking a step forward until her gaze turned playful. "But no hugs for me, thank you." Yamato giggled, nodding in understanding. "Got it, no hugging." Kaya stepped forward next, her heartwarming smile reflecting her warmth. "It's great to meet you, Yamato. Hancock speaks highly of you." As Hancock, Nami, Yamato, Salome, Alvida, and Kaya continued their walk towards the center of Logue Town, Yamato glanced around, excitement bubbling in her voice. "So where's Luffy?" Hancock replied with a reassuring smile, "He will meet us in the square. Plus, you'll get to meet the rest of the crew." "I can't wait." Yamato beamed, clearly eager to bond with Luffy's companions. As visions of their adventure danced in her head, Hancock asked, "So, Dragon and Lilith brought you here?" Yamato nodded affirmatively. "Yes. They want to talk to you and Luffy about something regarding one of the islands you plan to make your territory, Alabasta, if I'm correct." Alvida raised an eyebrow, curiosity piqued. "What do you mean?" Hancock clarified, "Well, when we get to the first part of the Grand Line, we will make some islands our territory. Luffy and I have some islands in mind, but Alabasta is a key target. It's perfect, it can act as a hub of trade for us." Nami's eyes sparkled with enthusiasm. "So it will make us rich." Hancock chuckled, her expression softening at Nami's excitement. "Well, yes, but Luffy and I agreed that when we take territory, we won't demand tribute from it. We have something else in mind." Kaya looked intrigued and asked, "What is it?" Hancock took a deep breath, feeling the gravity of what she was about to share. "Well, since Luffy plans on telling you all when we reach the Grand Line, I see no harm in telling you now. We plan to use Alabasta as our main base of operations for our black market operations." The revelation hung in the air, but before anyone could respond, she continued, "See, we both plan to rule the seas, but we also plan to rule the underworld. The only thing we won't allow is the slave trade. We plan to end that once and for all. If we succeed, we will have resources and money that even kings don't have." Hearing this, Nami couldn't contain herself. She rushed forward and hugged Hancock tightly, her eyes shining with excitement. "Oh my, I really picked the right crew." The women laughed, and the atmosphere brimmed with ambition and camaraderie. Aspiring to build something greater together sparked a sense of unity that flowed through them. They were not just a crew sailing the seas, they were forming a powerful alliance with a vision for their future. As Luffy and Kobe approached the town center, they spotted Hancock, Nami, Zoro, Kuro, Usopp, Sanji, Pudding, Alvida, Kaya, and Nami's pet Richie the lion, alongside Hancock's snake, Salome. Among them stood Yamato, who greeted Luffy with a smile. "There you are, Luffy," Yamato exclaimed. Luffy grinned back. "And I see you've met the crew. What do you think?" "They're interesting," Yamato replied, glancing at Sanji, who was fixated on her. Leaning closer to Luffy, she whispered, "Why is that blonde guy staring at me?" Luffy chuckled. "Oh, that's Sanji. He's a bit of a perv, but he's a great cook." Luffy then introduced Yamato to Kobe, who felt a little nervous meeting her. "Hey, Kobe, this is Yamato." "Nice to meet you, Kobe," Yamato said warmly. "So you're the one Hancock told me about." Luffy continued, "Guys, you've already met Yamato. She's going to be your trainer in hockey, along with me and Hancock. Plus, she's our ship's disciplinarian, which means her job is to maintain order on the crew." Luffy approached Hancock with a determined gleam in his eye. "Are you ready?" he asked, his excitement palpable. Hancock nodded, her own resolve shining through. Let's do this. In that moment, Luffy sprouted dragon wings, soaring into the sky. As he flew, Hancock grasped him from behind, her presence both comforting and exhilarating. Together, they made their way to the execution platform where Gold Roger had met his fate. As they landed atop the platform, the sight of a gathered crowd below greeted them. The anticipation in the air was electric. Luffy smiled at the crowd, his confidence radiating. Excellent. They're watching with interest, he said, glancing back at Hancock. However, whispers began to circulate among the onlookers. Who are those two on top of the scaffold? One man questioned, his voice laced with curiosity. I don't know, but, another woman chimed in, her voice trembling, wait, isn't that Shadow Dragon Monkey D, Luffy and Snake Princess Boa Hancock? Panic rippled through the crowd. Help! Call the Marines! Someone shouted, fear evident in their tone. Hearing the recognition, Luffy turned to the crowd, his voice booming. People of Logatown, me and Hancock have an announcement to make. Hancock stepped forward, her regal demeanor enhanced by the crowd's attention. Yes, we do, she began, the gravity of their declaration evident in her tone. Luffy took the lead, his energy infectious. You are looking at the new king and queen of the pirates. We will surpass Roger and rule the seas. But that's not all, we also plan to eliminate the world government for good. The declaration sent shockwaves through the crowd and the gathered members of the Shadow Dragon pirates, all of whom were stunned by the audacity of their captain and vice-captain. Nami, eyes wide, whispered, so this was their plan. Kuro, unable to contain himself, added, I have to admit, our captain and vice-captain have guts. With the crowd buzzing around them, Luffy's gaze shifted to Hancock, and a playful smirk crossed his face. Oh, and since we're up here, I'm going to do something else. Confused, Hancock raised an eyebrow, but her expression quickly shifted to shock as Luffy dropped to one knee. Her heart raced as he reached into his pocket and pulled out a shining ring. This is really happening, Hancock thought, her heart soaring. Please don't let this be a dream. Boa Hancock, Luffy proclaimed, his voice steady and strong, will you marry me? Hancock felt her world stop for a moment. She could hardly breathe, overwhelmed with emotion, unable to respond. This was the moment she had always dreamed of. As she prepared to say, yes, disaster struck. Suddenly, a swirling cloud of smoke erupted near them. Shadow Dragon, you are mine, Captain Smoker roared, charging at them with his powerful smoke abilities, intent on capturing Luffy. Anger surged through Hancock at the interruption. Without hesitation, she leapt toward Smoker, her leg enveloped in armament hockey. With a fierce kick fueled by her resolve, she struck Smoker with such force that a massive crater formed beneath him as he crashed into the ground. With the danger momentarily subdued, Hancock turned back to Luffy, her eyes shining with determination as she landed gracefully beside him. Yes, I will marry you, she exclaimed, joy breaking through her initial shock. Luffy's face lit up with ecstasy as he rose to meet her, and in that historic moment, they embraced and kissed atop the very platform where Gold Roger had once stood, sealing their commitment amidst a crowd that witnessed not just a proposal but the dawning of a new era in piracy. The cheers of the crowd echoed in celebration as the promise of adventure, love, and rebellion filled the air, signaling a future that would reshape the world. As Luffy and Hancock broke from their kiss, cheers erupted from the crowd below. They could feel the excitement and energy surging through the air. Luffy grinned at Hancock, his newly engaged fiancé. Let's go, he exclaimed, and Hancock nodded with a smile. However, their celebratory demeanor was quickly overshadowed by the sound of boots pounding against the cobblestones. The Marines were on the move, and Smoker, now furious and nursing his broken nose and ribs, staggered onto the square. He was beginning to question whether not calling for an admiral or vice-admiral was a good idea given the strength of the two pirates before. Luffy's bounty stood at a hefty 700 million berries, while Hancock's bounty of 660 million berries had earned her a fearsome reputation as well. With no time to waste, Luffy and Hancock jumped down from the scaffold, hurrying to their crew. All right, let's get out of here, Luffy called out, his voice steady with determination. The crew nodded in agreement, ready to make their escape. But their path was blocked by Tashigi, her sword drawn and her expression fierce. Monkey D. Luffy and Snake Princess Boa Hancock, surrender now. And you, Roronoa Zoro, hand over your blades. Luffy halted, a playful smirk on his face. Get out of my way, little girl, or else. Tashigi refused to back down. Luffy laughed, the sound echoing around them, and pulled out his sword, Shadow Slicer. Do you fear death, girl? Because if you don't step aside, it will come for you. You don't know who you're messing with. To emphasize his point, he transformed into his hybrid dragon form, surrounding his blade in shadows. He created a massive mace in his other hand, the shadowy weapon glistening ominously. Tashigi felt a bead of sweat trickle down her brow, but she remained steadfast, unwilling to let fear overwhelm her. Before the confrontation could escalate further, Zoro interjected, stepping forward. Captain, allow me, he said, ready to handle the situation himself. Luffy turned back to his human form, a grin still plastered on his face. Okay, just don't take too long with your girlfriend. Hey, she is not, Zoro began, his face turning a deep shade of red. Hancock, quick to add her teasing, giggled, oh, don't worry. We'll leave you to your lovebirds moment. Zoro's face flushed even more, resembling a ripe tomato. The banter lightened the tension, if only for a moment. Tashigi, realizing the ridiculousness of their dynamics, took a deep breath, her grip on her sword tightening. You're all going to regret this, she warned, though her voice lacked the conviction she intended to portray. As the rest of the Shadow Dragon pirates hurried toward their ship, Zoro found himself facing Tashigi, who stood firm with a mix of determination and disbelief. You're welcome, girl, he said, his voice steady. She narrowed her eyes, confusion flickering across her face. What are you talking about, pirate? For saving your life, Zoro replied flatly. Luffy is a good guy, but don't think for a second he wouldn't slice you in half without a second thought. Hancock wouldn't hesitate to kill you either. So, you're welcome. Tashigi's expression shifted to horror as she realized just how close she had come to disaster. Hand over, you don't deserve those 3 swords, you are a pirate. Zoro's patience wore thin. With a swift motion, he drew out his sword, Sandai Kidetsu. You want it? Come and get it. With her resolve ignited, Tashigi rushed at him, sword raised. Zoro, thanks to the rigorous training he had undergone with Luffy and Hancock, kept his composure. He closed his eyes and tapped into the observation haki he had been practicing. He could feel Tashigi's presence drawing nearer. As she swung her sword at him with a fluid motion, Zoro anticipated her move. In a split second, he expertly disarmed her, knocking her sword from her hand while simultaneously delivering a precise cut to her face, just grazing her skin. Tashigi stumbled backward and fell to the ground, clutching her face. She felt the sting of the cut near her right eye, thankful that it had missed her eye entirely. The wound was shallow, but it would leave a lasting scar. Zoro loomed over her, voice low and firm. Let that scar be a reminder. If you want to challenge me again, get stronger, or don't waste my time, girl. Tashigi sat there, stunned and clutching her face, realizing the consequences of underestimating a formidable opponent like Zoro. While her warrior spirit remained unbroken, she felt a sense of dread wash over her. Zoro's warning lingered in her mind, a reminder of the harsh realities of the world she had chosen to fight in. As he turned to leave, Zoro couldn't help but feel a twinge of regret. He respected her resolve and dedication as a swordswoman and the fact that she looked like Kuina, but in this world, strength ruled, and lessons were harsh. Meanwhile, Tashigi pulled herself up, the sting of defeat fueling her determination. She vowed to train harder, to grow stronger, and to be ready if their paths crossed again. She would not let this scar be merely a reminder of failure, but a mark of her resolve to improve and rise to the challenge of facing the likes of Zoro, Luffy, and Hancock, pivotal figures in this unpredictable sea of pirates and adventures. As Luffy and his crew spotted their ship, the Shadow Sorrow, another obstacle appeared, Smoker, bruised but tenacious. Sporting a broken nose from Luffy's earlier encounter and 3 broken ribs courtesy of Hancock, Smoker stood defiantly in their path. You just don't give up, do you? Hancock commented, her voice dripping with a mix of annoyance and admiration. I won't let you go back to the Grand Line, Smoker retorted, determination etched on his face. Luffy sighed, feeling the weight of the situation. Well, it looks like there's only one way this ends. He stepped forward, activating his devil fruit powers, transforming into his full dragon form. As he grew into a massive, black dragon, Smoker's bravado faltered. Facing a colossal creature that radiated an aura of power, one that looked as if it had emerged from the depths of hell, Smoker's confidence began to waver. "Move now, Smoker," Luffy commanded, his voice rumbling like thunder through the air. "Not a chance," Smoker yelled, refusing to back down. "Man, you are stubborn," Luffy replied, a slight smirk on his dragon lips. Suddenly, Hancock, having transformed into her Gorgon form, joined the fray. With a quick movement, she punched Smoker squarely in the stomach with a fist imbued with haki. The force knocked the Marine captain out of breath, and he passed out. "Get to the ship now," Hancock ordered, her fierce gaze locked on him. Turning to Luffy, she asked, "Where's Zoro?" Still in his dragon form, Luffy activated his observation haki, scanning the area. "Oh crap, he's on the other side of town. He got lost again." Hancock sighed, exasperated. "That's it. No alcohol for him for 1 month, and Nami will teach him how to read a compass." Without wasting another moment, Luffy took to the skies, soaring toward the other side of town to retrieve Zoro. Luffy's wings beat powerfully, propelling him through the air as he mentally prepared himself to find his green-haired friend. In the sky, Luffy spotted Zoro wandering aimlessly near a market square, looking utterly perplexed. "Zoro!" Luffy bellowed as he swooped down to his friend, transforming back into his human form just above him. "What, Luffy?" Zoro exclaimed, caught off guard. "I was just trying to find the ship." "Yeah, I can see that. Now come on, we have to move." As the Shadow Sorrow set sail, Luffy returned in his dragon form, Zoro clinging onto his back. When they reached the ship, Hancock crossed her arms, her expression firm. "As punishment for getting lost, no alcohol for a month," she announced. Zoro's face fell, despair washing over him as he curled into a ball in a corner of the deck, a wave of dejection surrounding him. The rest of the Shadow Dragon pirates laughed at his antics, their spirits high from the recent victory. "Hey, Hancock," Luffy called out, trying to lighten the mood. "It's our engagement party, don't you think we can let Zoro off the hook this time?" Hancock paused, her expression softening slightly. "I don't know." But her eyes lit up when she noticed Pudding and Sanji approaching with a massive vanilla cake, decorations bright and inviting. "Okay, Zoro, you're off the hook this time." Hancock finally relented, her tone playful. "Now give me that cake." The moment Hancock made her announcement, the atmosphere shifted. The crew erupted with cheers as the party commenced in full swing. Laughter, music, and the clinking of glasses filled the air, creating an atmosphere of celebration aboard the Shadow Sorrow. Just as everyone began to enjoy the cake and festivities, a voice echoed from behind them, one that Luffy, Hancock, and Yamato recognized all too well. "So my boy is getting married. Congratulations," came the voice, rich with authority and warmth. Luffy turned around, eyes widening as he saw the familiar figures. "Mom, Dad," he exclaimed, joy flooding over him. Yamato, standing nearby, added with excitement, "Oh Luffy. I forgot to tell you they brought me here." The two figures were unmistakable, Monkey D. Dragon, Luffy's enigmatic father whose reputation as the leader of the Revolutionary Army preceded him, and Luffy's mother, the fierce and fiery Lilith, known as the She-Devil, and sister to the legendary red-haired Shanks. Her red hair shone vibrantly against the backdrop of the ship, and her smile radiated pride. Luffy rushed to embrace them both, a grin stretched wide across his face. "What are you doing here?" "We wouldn't miss your engagement for the world," Dragon replied, his stern visage softening as he looked upon his son's joyous occasion. Lilith warmly embraced her student, Hancock, offering heartfelt congratulations. However, as a mother would, she turned to Luffy with a playful scolding. "What took you so long?" she teased, casting a knowing glance at her son. Luffy, joined by Hancock, introduced Dragon and Lilith to the rest of the crew. Once the introductions were complete, Lilith spoke up, pointing to the real reason for their visit beyond simply delivering Yamato. "There's something important we need to discuss with you both," Lilith began. Curious, Luffy asked, "So, what's so important that you both came all the way here?" "Oh, and Mom, how's Sabo?" Lilith's expression lit up with pride. "He's great, still trying to impress Koala, but great. He's the third in command now. Luffy grinned widely. Good to know. Tell him me and Hancock said hi. Hancock shifted the conversation, addressing Dragon. Is this about Alabasta? Dragon nodded. Yes. You know it's in the midst of a civil war, right? Luffy nodded enthusiastically. Yeah, and that makes it ripe for the taking. If my crew and I can promise the king security and stability, he'll accept our protection. Lilith shook her head slightly, a mix of patience and concern in her eyes. It's not that simple, Luffy. There's more going on. From what the Revolutionary Army has gathered, the warlord Crocodile may be involved in this mess. Although you, Hancock, Yamato, could beat him with no problem, we need to know his true intention. And Luffy, Hancock, there's something else. Ace has gone missing from Whitebeard's ship. Luffy, Hancock, and even Yamato were visibly startled. What? Luffy exclaimed. Oh no, what has he done this time? Dragon continued, his expression serious. Well, we received a message from Marco. It appears he's hunting a man by the name of Marshall D. Teach. Upon hearing this, Luffy's brow furrowed. Teach. That useless fat ass. Isn't he harmless? Knowing the next piece of news would truly upset Luffy and Hancock, both of whom were friends with the Whitebeard pirates, Dragon delivered it gently. Teach, killed your and Ace's friend Thatch and stole some kind of devil fruit. The mood shifted instantly. Luffy and Hancock's faces darkened, the news hitting them hard. Hancock, regaining her composure, spoke with a deep, icy calm. If you find Ace, tell him he'd better catch Teach before Luffy or I do. Luffy added, his tone filled with a restrained fury, yes, believe me, the horrors we'll unleash on him, oh, I can't wait. As Luffy and Hancock composed themselves after the heart-wrenching news of Thatch's death, Lilith spoke gently yet firmly. Listen, you two, I know this is hard, but leave Teach to Ace for now. I've already sent Sabo and Koala to find Ace, just in case. Luffy nodded, understanding the wisdom in her words. Okay, but if I cross paths with that asshole again, I won't hesitate to kill him. Hancock nodded in agreement. Neither will I. Dragon and Lilith both nodded in understanding, sharing a moment of silent support before leaving the Shadow Sorrow to continue their mission. With their departure, Luffy turned to his crew, determination in his eyes. All right, let's not let this ruin our party. The Shadow Dragon pirates raised their cups, a unified cheer rising as they resumed the engagement celebration for Luffy and Hancock. The festivities continued, filled with laughter, camaraderie, and dreams of the future buoying their spirits through the night. As the party wound down and the crew retired for the night, the ship grew quieter under the stars. Later, as the night deepened, Hancock awoke in their shared bed to find Luffy absent. Curious, she dressed and made her way to the ship's deck, where she found him staring out at the sea, a bottle of rum in hand. She approached him gently, her presence a comforting one. Luffy, what's the matter? Luffy glanced sideways at her and gave a sad smile. Oh, nothing. Just wanted to make a toast for Thatch. May he rest in peace. Hancock returned his smile, soft and understanding. Yeah, he was a good guy. Luffy handed her the bottle, and she took a drink as well, joining him in silent tribute. Together, they sat on the deck, sharing memories and the quiet of the night, finishing the bottle in each other's company. The stars above seemed to twinkle in acknowledgement of their shared sorrow and the bond that would see them through the trials ahead. The next morning, the kitchen of the Shadow Sorrow was bustling with activity as the crew began their breakfast. Luffy and Hancock stumbled through the door, looking thoroughly hungover. Sanji, ever the cheerful cook, caught sight of Hancock and grinned. Good morning, Hancock-chan. How about some breakfast? But Hancock wasn't in the mood. She raised her finger in a threatening gesture and replied, Sanji, if you don't want to be turned to stone, shut up and get us some strong coffee. Luffy, with his head resting heavily on the table, groaned in agreement, and that goes for the rest of you. Be quiet or you'll all have deck duty for a month. Kaya, sitting nearby, whispered to Alvida, why are they in such a foul mood? They didn't drink that much last night, did they? Alvida smiled knowingly. Well, I had night duty, and I saw them on the deck drinking. First, it was 1 bottle of rum, but then it became 3. At least they were drinking until the sun was visible. I also saw Hancock carrying Luffy bridal style to their cabin. Hearing this, the rest of the crew started giggling, the laughter echoing around the kitchen. Yamato, slightly more serious but still playful, spoke up. Luffy, Hancock, you two should sleep it off. I can handle training for today. Luffy raised his head slightly, still bleary-eyed. Are you sure, Yamato? We're about to reach the knock upstream, and me and Hancock should be present. Isn't that right, Hancock? He turned to find Hancock slumped asleep on the table, her head resting beside him. He sighed, realizing the state they were both in. Okay, fine, he relented. Turning back to the crew, he added, this never happened. Is that clear? The crew nodded in agreement, each of them grinning, fully aware of the antics of their captain and vice-captain. With a resigned smile, Luffy leaned down to scoop Hancock up gently, cradling her in his arms. Let's go to bed, Hancock. As Luffy carried her back to their cabin, the crew continued their breakfast, the atmosphere light and jovial as they anticipated the adventure that lay ahead. They shared knowing glances and friendly murmurs about their captain and Hancock, enjoying the camaraderie that made them a family. While Luffy and Hancock were sleeping off their hangovers, Yamato took charge of the ship, ensuring everything ran smoothly. She instructed the crew to keep the noise level down, fully aware of how grumpy Luffy and Hancock could be after a night of heavy drinking. Suddenly, Nami shouted from the lookout, Yamato. I see the knock upstream. Yamato smiled and replied, good. We need to sail into it to get to the Grand Line. As the Shadow Sorrow began its ascent up the knock upstream, the crew watched in awe at the sheer force and spectacle of the ride. All except for Luffy and Hancock, who remained oblivious to the excitement, still deep in their slumber. With great enthusiasm, Yamato called out, we made it. We're in the first half of the Grand Line, paradise. She made her way up to Nami to show her how to use a log pose, the excitement palpable among the crew. Suddenly, Kobe's voice cut through the air. Hey, what is that? Looks like a mountain. Zoro chimed in, yeah, but it's black. What kind of rock is that? Curious, Yamato moved to see what the commotion was about. As she turned to go check, the mountain shifted, revealing a massive whale head emerging from the water. Don't worry, it's Laboon. He's harmless, Yamato assured them. Just as she finished her sentence, Laboon opened his gigantic mouth wide, mistaking the ship for food. Whoa, Laboon, Yamato exclaimed, panicking slightly. It's me, Yamato. Amidst the chaos, Kaya was charging up her thunder power, while Zoro and Kuro had their swords drawn, ready to defend the ship. Stop. Don't hurt him, Yamato shouted to her crewmates, surprising them all with her fierce defense of the whale. But before they could question her further, Laboon's massive mouth closed around the ship, swallowing the Shadow Sorrow whole without any hesitation. Inside, the crew staggered as they found themselves in complete darkness, surrounded by what felt like the insides of a whale. Are we inside Laboon? Nami asked, trying to catch her breath. Yamato, still unfazed, chuckled sheepishly. Yep, he's a gentle giant, I promise. We just need to let him know we're here and that we're not food. The crew began to process the bizarre situation, realizing they had entered a new phase of their adventure in the Grand Line, and they would have to work together to communicate with this giant whale if they hoped to get out of this predicament. As the Shadow Dragon pirates, along with their ship, found themselves in the peculiar surroundings of Laboon's stomach, they were taken aback to see that the interior looked remarkably like a bright, sunny sky. Floating islands created a surreal environment, and in the middle of it all sat an old man named Crocus, comfortably perched on a small island, reading a newspaper. Yamato, realizing the predicament they were in and knowing Luffy and Hancock would soon wake up to this bizarre situation, shouted over to the old man, Hey, Crocus. It's me, Yamato. Crocus looked up, his eyes brightening with recognition. Yamato, what are you doing in Laboon's stomach? And where are Luffy and Hancock? Embarrassed, Yamato scratched her head. Well, Laboon mistook us for food. Luffy and Hancock are in their cabin sleeping off a nasty hangover, and they left me in charge of the ship. Kuro, trying to tease Yamato further, chimed in, yeah, and we got eaten by a whale. Yamato's expression dropped in comic despair, her head hanging low in shame. Crocus couldn't help but burst into laughter. Oh man, this is funny. But don't worry, I'll open the door for you. As Crocus spoke, he shared how he had been taking care of Laboon all this time, explaining that he was actually the doctor for the Roger pirates. He recounted the day Luffy stopped Laboon from hitting his head on the rocks and how they had made a pact to fight again one day, a bond that Luffy had unknowingly forged with the great whale. Suddenly, as they were immersed in his stories, two of nowhere, causing everyone to turn their attention toward them. One was a man wearing a crown and a vibrant green suit, and the other was a girl with long blue hair pulled back into a ponytail. "Who are you?" Yamato asked, her voice a mix of intrigue and surprise. The two individuals introduced themselves. The man declared, "I am Mr. Nine," while the girl followed, saying, "I am Miss Wednesday." The Shadow Dragon pirates burst into laughter at the absurdity of their names. Kobe, always one to voice his thoughts, chimed in with a grin, "Man, those are some dumb names." Mr. Nine, now irritated by the mockery, pointed his bazooka at Kobe and fired. To his astonishment, the projectile simply bounced off Kobe's body. "What the?" he exclaimed, bewildered. In retaliation, Kobe shouted, "Gum Gum Pistol." Stretching his arm, he delivered a powerful punch directly to Mr. Nine's face, knocking him backward. Miss Wednesday, shocked by the sudden turn of events, instinctively aimed at Alvida, but her shot proved useless. The projectile merely slid off Alvida's body, bouncing harmlessly away and crashing directly into Zoro, who sliced it in half with a swift motion of his swords. Miss Wednesday now stood in stunned silence, realizing she was not only trapped in a whale's stomach but also that her partner was knocked out cold. Panic began to set in as she assessed her dire situation. Seizing the opportunity, Kobe stretched his arm around her waist, effectively capturing her. He grinned triumphantly. Crocus, observing the unfolding chaos, raised an eyebrow. "You two again," he remarked, recognizing the infamous duo. Yamato looked at Crocus in surprise. "You know them?" Crocus nodded gravely. "Yes, they are trying to kill Laboon." Miss Wednesday, now panicking, desperately tried to justify her actions. "No, wait, we were just..." At that moment, the door swung open with a crashing sound, revealing a very angry Luffy and Hancock emerging onto the deck. Luffy rubbed the sleep from his eyes, trying to comprehend the chaotic scene before him. "What is all that noise?" he demanded, his voice still thick with grogginess. Seeing their captain, Yamato quickly explained, "Luffy, we've got intruders. They were trying to attack Laboon." Luffy's eyes narrowed as he focused on Mr. Nine, who was trying to regain his composure after being knocked out by Kobe. Hancock, meanwhile, was looking down at Miss Wednesday, her expression turning fierce. Both Luffy and Hancock took a moment to process their surroundings. As they looked around, they spotted Crocus sitting calmly nearby. Luffy, still bewildered, asked, "Yamato, where are we? Who are these two idiots? Why is Crocus here, and where is Laboon?" Yamato, feeling the weight of their gazes and the embarrassment of the situation, took a deep breath and began explaining. "Well, it's a long story. You see, we're actually inside Laboon's stomach. He mistook our ship for food, and these two," she gestured to Mr. Nine and Miss Wednesday, "were trying to attack him." As she recounted the events, detailing how Mr. Nine and Miss Wednesday had come to wage an attack on Laboon, Luffy and Hancock listened intently. With each revelation, their eyes widened. "So we're inside Laboon. He thought our ship was food," Hancock exclaimed in shock. Yamato nodded, relieved that Luffy and Hancock were taking the news better than she had feared. But to Yamato's relief, Luffy and Hancock both burst into laughter at the absurdity of it all, their initial anger dissipating in the wake of humor. Crocus, always a bit amused by the chaos that followed Luffy, opened a door he had installed inside Laboon and led the way out. As they docked, Luffy greeted the giant whale with a wide grin, feeling a sense of camaraderie with the creature. "Hey, Laboon, sorry about the mix-up earlier," Luffy called out, earning a gentle nudge from Laboon, who seemed to care for them despite the chaos. Once outside, Luffy turned attention to the prisoners, an unconscious Mr. Nine and a very frightened Miss Wednesday. Luffy eyed her curiously. "Why do you look so familiar?" he asked, studying her closely. "Have we met?" Miss Wednesday, now even more nervous, stammered out, "No, I think you're mistaken." Hancock, still beside Luffy, pulled him aside. "Luffy, I know who that is," she said quietly, glancing over at Miss Wednesday. "You do?" Luffy asked, intrigued. "Yes," Hancock confirmed, nodding. "I think that girl is Princess Vivi Nefertari of Alabasta." Luffy's eyes widened in realization. "Vivi? Are you sure?" "Positive," Hancock replied. She's well known for her connection to the kingdom and the struggles there. If we're in this situation, it could mean something significant for Alabasta and our plans. Luffy considered this for a moment, then nodded resolutely. Okay, then, let's find out what's going on. On board the Shadow Sorrow, two terrified screams echoed as Mr. Nine and Miss Wednesday realized who Luffy and Hancock were. Panic swept over them, their voices rising in alarm. Shut up already. Luffy barked, irritated by their incessant shouting. Zoro, throw them in the ship's cells so we can figure out what to do with them. Zoro nodded and grabbed Mr. Nine and Miss Wednesday, dragging them off as they continued to protest. Once Zoro had returned, Luffy called a meeting with his crew to address the situation. All right, everyone gather round. Luffy announced, seriousness creeping into his usually carefree demeanor. We need to talk about the girl. It's possible she's Princess Vivi of Alabasta. The announcement drew surprised looks from the crew, and they began murmuring among themselves. Kuro, the ship's strategist, stepped forward. If she is truly Princess Vivi, we can use her as leverage, especially since we have plans to make Alabasta the center of our black market activities. We need to know what she knows and what her motivations are. He quickly suggested, Pudding could use her fruit power to look into her memories and figure out what she's doing with that guy. Everyone nodded in agreement, contemplating the implications. Everyone, that is, except for Sanji, who protested, wait. We shouldn't treat a lady like this, Luffy. Throwing her in a cell. What kind of man are you? You're just going into your pervert mode again, aren't you? Kuro said with a smirk. Pudding shot Sanji an angry glare. If you start acting like a pervert again, I'll hit you on the head with a frying pan. And I'll use my devil fruit power to make you forget that you love women. Sanji paled at the idea, quickly raising his hands in surrender. Okay, I get it. No pervy thoughts. With the plan set, Luffy addressed the crew one final time. After breakfast, we'll interrogate the princess. We need to understand her situation and how she connects to all this. After breakfast, Luffy was enjoying the warm sun, lazily sprawled out on the deck, when he suddenly heard a panicked voice yelling, please let me go. You can't do this. He turned to see Alvida dragging Princess Vivi toward him, who was struggling to break free. Luffy smirked, recognizing that it was showtime. Let me go or else. Vivi shouted defiantly, though her voice quaked with fear. Alvida, unfazed by the threat, simply asked, or else what, girlie? Vivi, realizing her situation, looked pale as she pleaded, please, let me go. Alvida smiled slyly and picked Vivi up, saying, sorry, but that's for the captain to decide. With that, she tossed Vivi toward Luffy. As Vivi landed, she scrambled to her feet and turned to see Luffy sitting behind her, lounging comfortably. Her face drained of color upon seeing him. Please, let me go. I am just a simple. Bullshit. Luffy cut her off, his voice firm. I know who you are. You're Princess Vivi Nefertari of Alabasta. Hearing her true identity exposed sent a chill through her. She stood frozen for a moment, realizing the implications of her cover being blown. Luffy continued, listen here, princess. You're going to tell me what the hell you're doing here, and then I'll decide what to do with you. Vivi, visibly shaken, finally caved in. Fine. Yes, I am Princess Vivi, she admitted reluctantly. She then explained her mission, describing Baroque works and how she and her bodyguard, Agaram, were undercover to uncover the true intentions of the organization regarding Alabasta. Luffy listened with interest, stroking his chin thoughtfully. Who is the boss? Vivi looked at him nervously, feeling the weight of her answer. I can't say. He's powerful. Luffy grinned. Well, Pudding could see your memories, and I already know the only person who could be the boss is the warlord Crocodile. Vivi's eyes widened in shock. How did you know? She asked, her mind racing at the implications of Luffy's knowledge. Luffy chuckled, I've heard some things. Besides, I won't let anyone harm our friends or mess with Alabasta. He leaned closer, his gaze steady and serious. Now, if you really want to help your kingdom, we can work together. But first, you need to trust me. Vivi weighed her options carefully before finally conceding to Luffy's proposition, though her curiosity about his motives lingered. What exactly do you and your crew have planned? Surely you're not doing this out of mere kindness, she inquired, her voice edged with suspicion. Luffy grinned, a hint of mischief in his eyes, and said, "After I defeat Crocodile, I intend to make Alabasta my territory." Vivi was taken aback by this declaration, her mind racing at the implications. Before she could voice her concerns, Luffy continued, "But don't worry, I won't demand tribute for my protection. I've got other plans for Alabasta." "What plans?" Vivi asked cautiously, her interest piqued yet tinged with apprehension. "I plan to make Alabasta the center for my black market operations," Luffy explained. "But I won't be dealing in slaves. The very mention of slavery makes me sick. In return, Alabasta will be under my flag, and the royal family and all citizens will be under my protection." Vivi listened intently, her initial reluctance giving way to contemplation. She understood the potential benefits such an alliance could bring her beleaguered kingdom. After a moment of silence, she nodded. "Okay, I agree. But my father will also have to agree to make it official." "Good," Luffy replied, satisfied with the arrangement. "Now, Princess, tell me about the next island. Is it some sort of base for Baroque works?" Vivi nodded, confirming his suspicion. "The next island is called Whiskey Peak. It's filled with bounty hunters who target pirates. They lure them in with hospitality and then capture them." Luffy's smile widened at the prospect. "Looks like my crew and I will have some fun." As Alvida escorted Vivi back to her cell, Luffy gave her a reassuring nod. They had agreed to keep up appearances, and Vivi understood the importance of playing along for now. However, she had made Luffy swear not to harm Agarum once they reached Whiskey Peak, a promise Luffy readily agreed to. With Vivi safely back in her cell, Luffy gathered his crew to discuss their approach to Whiskey Peak. "Alright, everyone, here's what we're heading into," Luffy said, detailing the trap the town had set for them with Vivi's warning fresh in their minds. As the Shadow Sorrow approached Whiskey Peak, the crew observed the entire town lined up to welcome them eagerly. Luffy, Hancock, Kuro, and Nami exchanged knowing glances. Luffy was the first to speak. "Man, it's obvious this is a trap." Hancock nodded, her eyes scanning the festivities. "Yeah, we could have figured that out even without the princess's warning." Kuro chimed in with a mischievous grin, "It's pretty obvious. How about we rob them blind ourselves? What do you say, Nami? You once told me you robbed a noble's mansion in under 4 minutes. Think you can beat your record?" Nami grinned confidently. "No problem. With my observation haki and my devil fruit powers, I should be able to rob this town in under 3 minutes." Hancock chuckled, eager to join the game. "Care to make a bet?" Nami's eyes sparkled with the challenge. "Okay, 1,000,000 berries says I can do it in under 3 minutes." Hancock smirked. "You're on, cat girl." As Nami formulated her plan, a fleeting thought crossed her mind, something personal she needed to share with Luffy and Hancock after Alabasta. She hoped they'd understand. Meanwhile, Kuro pointed out a distraction on deck. "Hey, what are Sanji and Longnose up to?" The crew looked over to see Usopp striking self-proclaimed heroic poses while Sanji was busy eyeing the girls in the crowd, acting the part of the charmer but quickly veering into perverted territory. Their antics came to an abrupt halt as Kaya hit Usopp with a small jolt of lightning from her thunder powers, and Pudding smacked Sanji on the head with a frying pan. Kaya scolded them, "How dumb can you be? It's..." As the Shadow Dragon pirates entered Whiskey Peak, they were greeted by the townspeople, who had gathered en masse to welcome them. Aware of the trap, Luffy decided to play along, meeting their enthusiasm with his usual carefree demeanor. The mayor approached, a figure matching Vivi's description of Agarum in disguise. He began lavishing them with praise, speaking of the honor it was to have such esteemed pirates in their town. Luffy, however, had no patience for the charade. "Cut the crap," Luffy interjected, presenting Vivi and Mr. Nine, who had been delivered as part of their ruse. "We expect a feast, or else." Agarum, caught off guard, nodded quickly. Of course," he replied, hurriedly setting the party in motion. As the festivities unfolded, the Shadow Dragon pirates partook in the revelry but remained vigilant, fully aware of the bounty hunters' intentions. It wasn't long before they noticed something off about their drinks, realizing they had been spiked with a sleeping drug. Watching from a corner of town, Vivi, still posing as Miss Wednesday, and Mr. Nine conferred with Agarum, who maintained his cover as Mr. 8. "Are you sure they're asleep?" Vivi asked skeptically. "Yes," Agarum replied with confidence. We put enough sleeping pills in those drinks to knock out a sea king. But you two have brought real trouble here. Just then, a tall, muscular woman dressed as a nun appeared, her expression smug. Either way, we've got them. This will be quite a payday, the boss will be more than happy. Mr. 8 nodded in agreement, yes. The captain and vice captain alone are worth 1,360,000,000 berries. Suddenly, a voice echoed from above. Did you really think it would be so easy? Luffy called out, transforming into his hybrid dragon form on the rooftop. You bounty hunters are truly stupid, Hancock added, standing beside him in her Gorgon form, her bow drawn and ready. Do you really think we'd fall for the old drug in the drink trick? Kuro sneered, his cat claws gleaming in the moonlight. Man, you're dumber than you look, Zoro grinned, holding his katana with a dangerous glint in his eye. Alvida brandished her mace, her stance confident. Know this, you are lambs that let a pack of wolves into your fold. Kaya charged up her thunder powers, electricity crackling around her. You should start running for the hills, or else. The Baroque Works agents looked up in shock, only to see the full might of the Shadow Dragon pirates standing above them, minus Nami and Richie. Their eyes widened further as they spotted Nami in her hybrid panther mode, riding Richie and carrying a large bag. Triumphant, she declared, 2 minutes and 55 seconds. I win, Hancock, but this place wasn't worth the trouble. The 4 Baroque Works agents looked on in terror, but they weren't the only ones, the entire town of bounty hunters was paralyzed with fear. Luffy turned to Yamato, a mischievous gleam in his eye. Hey, Yamato. Want to have some fun? Take Zoro, Sanji, Kaya, and Kuro with you and take out this cannon fodder. Usopp, provide them sniper cover. Nami, you take Kobe, Alvida, and Pudding, and handle those two approaching us. Nami nodded, ready for action, while Hancock smirked and added, shall we pay the one watching us a visit? As they dispersed, Yamato, Zoro, Kuro, Sanji, and Kaya stood facing over 100 bounty hunters, the odds stacked against them. Zoro smirked, looking eager for the fight. So, who gets first dibs? I'll go, Sanji declared, a playful glint in his eye. Oh, shut up, you pervy cook, Zoro retorted, rolling his eyes. But Yamato interjected, oh, this one, it's mine. I still haven't shown you guys my devil fruit. With that, she began to transform. Her teeth elongated into fangs, her hair grew longer and more wild, and a ribbon-like trail of cold air enveloped her shoulders. A large tail sprouted, covered in white fur matching her new appearance. Her eyebrows arched upward, her eyes turned a vibrant blue, and her horns grew larger and more pronounced. Now in her hybrid mode, she looked both majestic and formidable. What are you? Kaya asked with wide eyes, a mix of admiration and awe. Yamato smiled, showcasing her new form. I have eaten the Inu Inu no Mi, model, Okuchi no Makami. It's a mythical zone that turns me into a mythical wolf capable of manipulating ice. Leaning her head back slightly, she declared, watch this. With a shout, she unleashed, Namuji Hyoga. A powerful beam of ice erupted from her mouth, crashing into the gathered bounty hunters with incredible force. The impact was devastating, the bounty hunters caught in Yamato's attack were frozen solid in an instant. Kaya, Kuro, Zoro, Sanji, and Usopp looked on in shock. Wow, no wonder you're third in command. Kaya exclaimed, genuinely impressed. Hey, no fair, Yamato. Leave some for us. Zoro complained, feeling eager to join the fray. Yamato, still in her hybrid form, chuckled. Looks like I got carried away. On the other side of town, Nami, Richie, Alvida, Kobe, and Pudding unexpectedly bumped into 2 unfamiliar characters. One was a tall man wearing a leather coat and sunglasses, while the other was a woman donned in a yellow and orange hat, a lemon-patterned yellow dress, lemon earrings, and white high-heeled shoes. Nami, curious and unafraid, hopped down from Richie and asked, hey, who are you two oddballs? The man, clearly irritated, shouted back, hey girl, who do you think you're talking to? I am Mr. 5, and this is my partner, Ms. Valentine. Nami and her group couldn't help but laugh at the dramatic introduction. Stepping forward confidently, Nami shifted into her hybrid panther form and said, oh really? Well, let me introduce us. The dorky boy with glasses is Kobe. Hey, I'm not dorky. Kobe protested, tears nearly welling in his eyes as he tried to defend himself. The lion is Richie, Nami continued, and the fierce-looking lion shot them all a menacing glare. The girl is Pudding, she added. Pudding opened her third eye menacingly for effect. And this is Alvida, Nami concluded proudly, also known as Iron Mace Alvida, bounty 30 million berries. And my name is Nami, known as Panther Lady, with a bounty of 35 million berries. Alvida scoffed and shot back, for now, I intend to have a bigger bounty than you, girl. Nami, unfazed, replied cheekily, you'll have to try harder, grandma. What did you say, you greedy witch? Alvida retorted angrily. Kobe, sensing the brewing conflict, interjected, hey, could you two finish this later? We have more important things to deal with. Mr. Five and Ms. Valentine, now fuming at being ignored, shouted in unison about how dare they, but their anger quickly turned to shock as they witnessed Kobe, Pudding, Nami, and Alvida playing rock paper scissors. I win, Alvida proclaimed triumphantly as her victorious shout echoed. Me too, Kobe exclaimed, raising his hand in excitement. Nami, slightly irritated at her loss, crossed her arms and grumbled, fine, you can have them, but I hate losing. Alvida looked back at Kobe. So, Kobe, want the guy or the girl? Kobe thought for a moment and replied, I'll take the Afro guy. Okay, I guess this girl with no sense of style is mine, Alvida said, smirking. Ms. Valentine, overhearing the comment, growled in anger. You *TCH. I will kill you for that remark. She charged at Alvida, her fury evident. In an instant, Ms. Valentine leapt into the air. She laughed in her signature way, declaring that she had eaten the kilo fruit, allowing her to change her weight at will. As Ms. Valentine shouted, 100 kilograms. She began to plummet towards Alvida. Alvida thought to herself, man, this is too easy. My devil fruit alone gives me an advantage, but I have something else in mind. She grabbed her mace and began to concentrate. Just like that, the mace glimmered and turned black, a telltale sign that she had activated her armament hockey. Ms. Valentine, still descending rapidly, shouted, 10,000 kilo press. Alvida shot a quick glance at her with a sly grin. Nice try. Alvida swung her mace, striking Ms. Valentine with incredible force. The blow sent her crashing through several buildings, creating a shower of debris that fell around them, leaving the onlookers in stunned silence. As Ms. Valentine was effortlessly defeated, Mr. Five shouted in disbelief and frustration. Ms. Valentine. He looked furious at the sight of his partner sprawled out. Kobe, feeling emboldened by the battle, replied, hey, I'm your opponent now. He grinned at Mr. Five, but his cockiness only amused the man. Mr. Five laughed, shaking his head at Kobe. Look at you. In response, Kobe shouted, gum gum pistol. He extended his arm out, punching an unsuspecting Mr. Five straight in the face, connecting solidly. Now annoyed, Mr. Five stuck his finger up his nose, pulled out a booger, and flicked it towards Kobe, who narrowly dodged it, and just like that the booger exploded. Man, you're disgusting. Flicking a booger at someone and calling it an attack. Kobe exclaimed in disbelief. Mr. Five smirked confidently. I've eaten the Bomu no Mi, which allows me to create strong explosions from any part of my body without harming myself. I'm also immune to all explosion-based attacks. Kobe grinned with shark-like teeth. Yeah, but you're still gross. Deciding to show off what he talked about with Luffy in Logatown, Kobe stretched his muscles, allowing steam to pour out of his body. Gear second, he yelled, his body transforming with increased speed and power. In a flash, he disappeared and reappeared behind Mr. Five. Jet bazooka, he shouted, delivering a powerful punch that landed squarely on Mr. Five's face, knocking him out cold. As the commotion settled, on a cliff overlooking Whiskey Peak, a woman observed the carnage with a glimmer of fear in her eyes. Suddenly, she heard a voice behind her and turned around, shocked to find Luffy and Hancock standing there. How did you, she began, but Luffy cut her off with a casual wave of his hand. Don't worry, we won't hurt you. In fact, we've been looking for you, Nico Robin. Luffy stated, all business now. Before them stood Nico Robin, the devil child, and the last survivor of Ohara, her dark hair cascading wildly around her face. Fear flashed across her features as she glanced between them, uncertainty clawing at her. How do you know my true name? She asked, her voice surprisingly steady despite the turmoil beneath. Luffy chuckled lightly, breaking the tension. Well, simple. We've been looking for you for some time. He stepped forward, his posture relaxed but firm. Hancock chimed in, let's just say we have two friends who told us about you. Robin's heart raced as realization hit her, her secret identity was no longer safe. Years of running and hiding had left her wary of strangers. You don't understand, she warned, her instincts kicking in. She prepared to strike at a moment's notice. I can't let you take me. You don't know who I am. Don't even think about it, Luffy interjected, his tone shifting to one of seriousness. We know your devil fruit, the Hana no mi, and we've noticed you've been watching us. You know you don't stand a chance against me or Hancock. Just give up and surrender now. Once we're out of here, we will explain everything. Robin flinched at his words. She had spent over 20 years evading capture and the idea of surrender was foreign to her, almost unimaginable. I won't go down easy, she shot back, determination blazing in her eyes. Hancock observed Robin's defiance, recognizing the stubbornness that mirrored her own past. This is going to be difficult, she murmured to herself, elegantly her massive snake, Salome, from behind her. With a swift, fluid motion, Salome emerged, coiling around Robin with surprising speed, effectively trapping her. Suddenly, Robin found herself enwrapped in the snake's powerful coils, panic momentarily overtaking her composure. Hancock stepped forward, positioning herself behind Robin. In a calculated move, she delivered a precise chop to Robin's neck, rendering her unconscious in an instant. Man, she is as stubborn as Olivia, Luffy remarked with a hint of admiration mixed with exasperation. He turned to Hancock, who watched the scene with a mixture of regret and resolve. A shame I had to knock her out, but it's the easiest way, she said, the weight of her actions evident in her tone. Luffy nodded in agreement, his gaze returning to Whiskey Peak, where the chaos of bounty hunters had unfolded. Let's get back to the town. I bet the rest of our crew has already beaten those bounty hunters, he said, excitement bubbling in his voice as he imagined their triumphant return. Back at Whiskey Peak, the Shadow Dragon pirates had emerged victorious in their confrontation with the bounty hunters. Nami, Alvida, and Kobe stood triumphant, having successfully captured Mr. Five and Miss Valentine during the chaotic battle. The duo was now tied up and squirming on the ground, their attempts to escape thwarted. Let us go this instant, shouted Mr. Five, his voice filled with desperation. You don't know who you're messing with. Nami, with a confident smirk, shifted into her panther hybrid mode, her muscles rippling as she prepared to intimidate the captives. Look, you two have two options, she said, accentuating her words as she stepped closer, her retractable claws glinting in the light. The first is to shut up. She took another step forward, closing the distance, her eyes narrowing menacingly. The second is, Nami leaned in closer, her voice dropping to a low hiss, I can use you for a scratch toy and then feed you to my pet lion. Mr. Five and Miss Valentine exchanged horrified glances, their bravado swiftly disappearing as they noticed Richie, Nami's pet lion, licking his face with a fork and knife in his paws, a comically absurd sight that contrasted with the perilous situation. Kuro stepped forward, catching on to Nami's ruthless plan. Wait, Nami. We should torture them first to see what they know, he said, his expression serious as he readied for a show of force. Pudding, with her three eyes wide open, added her own chill to the atmosphere. Oh, don't worry, she said, her tone deceptively calm. I can see their memories with my devil fruit. No one can hide their secrets from me. Her eyes glimmered with a mix of excitement and curiosity, relishing the chance to extract information. As Mr. Five and Miss Valentine's faces went pale with fear, their expressions turning to sheer horror, a new presence approached. They looked up to see Luffy and Hancock making their way through the crowd, an undeniable air of authority surrounding them. Hancock, radiating strength and confidence, scanned the scene before her, noting the captives tied up and the chaos that had ensued. What's going on here? She asked, her voice crisp and commanding. Luffy grinned widely, unfazed by the tense atmosphere. Looks like we've taken care of the bad guys. They're just sharing how scared they are, he said, his cheerful demeanor drawing eye rolls from his crew. Mr. Five and Miss Valentine's expressions twisted in despair as they realized they were surrounded by formidable foes. The arrival of Luffy and Hancock was the last thing they wanted to see. As they screamed for release, the tension in the air hung thick, setting the stage for what would surely be a showdown of wills and wits in the shadow of Whiskey Peak. The Shadow Dragon pirates were ready to uncover the secrets the Baroque Works agents held, and no one was getting away that easily. Luffy approached the captured Mr. Five and Miss Valentine, the intensity of the moment radiating from him. "So, you two work for Crocodile," he said, a knowing grin forming on his face. The looks of sheer terror that flashed across Mr. Five and Miss Valentine were palpable, their worst fears had come to fruition. They had not expected their boss, Mr. Zero, to be known to others, especially not now with their fates hanging by a thread. Their dread intensified as they noticed Ms. All Sunday, unconscious and slung over Hancock's shoulder, the very person they feared and know as their boss's partner. Seeing her taken down felt like a death sentence for them, leaving them feeling more trapped than ever. "Hey, Zoro, Kuro," Luffy called, gesturing towards the pair. "Take these two and her," he pointed to Robin, "put them in sea stone cuffs and lock them in the ship's cells for now." Without hesitation, Zoro and Kuro nodded, ready to escort the prisoners away, efficiently managing the situation as they moved. After ensuring the captives were handled, Luffy turned to the rest of the crew. "Hey, where are Sanji and Yamato?" Nami chimed in. "Oh, they saw something and went to check it out." Just as she finished speaking, Sanji and Yamato came into view, the latter carrying a surprisingly large duck with a saddle on its back. Yamato's face lit up with excitement as she approached. "Luffy, Hancock, look what I found. This guy will make a great dinner." Vivi, horrified, rushed forward. "No, you can't eat him. He's my pet and friend." Her protests were filled with panic as she stepped protectively between Yamato and the duck, whom she affectionately named Kuru. Yamato, taken aback by Vivi's plea, replied, "Are you sure? Sanji already has some ideas on how to cook him." "Yamato, let him go," Luffy said, his tone light yet firm. Sighing, Yamato relented. "Okay," she agreed, gently releasing Kuru. The duck, tears welling up in its eyes, rushed to Vivi's side, burying its head against her for comfort. Vivi hugged Kuru tightly, relieved to have her friend back. As the crew shared a small moment of relief, Sanji cleared his throat, shifting the focus. "What about these two?" he asked, shoving a captured otter dressed in a polka dot outfit and a vulture wearing a flying helmet into view. Vivi recognized them immediately. "That's Mr. 13 and Miss Friday. They're the unluckies. They serve as messengers for Mr. Zero and are responsible for executing any Baroque Works agents that fail their missions." Sanji scoffed, looking at the goofy duo in front of him. "What? This chicken and this rat? You've got to be kidding me." Luffy couldn't help RDT of the situation. "Throw these two in the cells as well. If I can't find some use for them, you can cook them, Sanji." "Got it, Captain," Sanji replied, a mischievous grin on his face as he grabbed the reluctant prisoners. As the Shadow Dragon pirates boarded their ship, they prepared to leave Whiskey Peak behind. Alongside them were Vivi, her pet duck Kuru, and the captured prisoners. The atmosphere was tense, yet filled with a sense of camaraderie as the crew sailed on. Vivi turned to Luffy with a concerned expression. "Where is Agaram?" "Relax," Luffy said with his typical carefree demeanor. "He's on his way to Alabasta to inform King Cobra about everything. Hancock and I gave him an eternal pose we found on Nico Robin." At the mention of Robin's name, Vivi's eyes widened. "Wait, Nico Robin, that's Miss All Sunday's real name?" Luffy nodded confidently. "Yep, it is." He then turned to her, his tone growing serious. "Listen, Princess, while we are allies now, I cannot allow you to be a burden on this ship. When we reach Alabasta, I can't guarantee your safety." Vivi understood the weight of his words. Though Agaram had taught her some combat techniques, she knew she was far weaker compared to Luffy and his crew. The thought of becoming a liability weighed heavily on her mind. Luffy then smiled, lightening the mood. "Well, I think it's time." He opened a black hole with his shadow powers and pulled out the last devil fruit he and Hancock collected over the years. Vivi's curiosity piqued. "What?" she exclaimed. "Is that?" Luffy interrupted her excitement. "Yap, it is the Kitsune Kitsune no Mi, Sabaku no Kitsune." "What?" Vivi gasped. "But how did you get this?" "This is a legendary devil fruit that transforms you into one of Alabasta's guardians." Her eyes sparkled with wonder as she processed the information. Luffy grinned broadly. "I have my sources. So, do you accept it?" I believe you and this fruit are meant for each other. Vivi was taken aback, her heart racing at the possibility of wielding such power. The idea of becoming one of Alabasta's guardians filled her with hope and determination. I accept, she finally declared, steeling her resolve. This could be my chance to protect my kingdom. Hancock appeared on the deck, noticing the scene unfold before her. You're giving her the last devil fruit? She asked, a hint of surprise in her voice. Luffy nodded, his excitement palpable. Of course. Hancock turned to Vivi, her expression serious. Just use it wisely, it was a pain in the ass tracking this fruit down. Vivi nodded, feeling a mix of gratitude and trepidation. She picked up the Kitsune no Mi, admiring its stunning appearance, a golden pear with intricate swirls resembling sand dunes. At the top, leaf-like protrusions shaped like fox ears added to its charm. Taking a deep breath, she bit into the fruit. As the overwhelming taste washed over her, a wave of disgust threatened to make her retch. She struggled to swallow, but with resolve, she forced it down. As soon as she swallowed, an incredible sensation began to surge through her body. Okay, now transform, Luffy encouraged, drawing from his own experience as a zone user. Vivi concentrated deeply, and, in an instant, her form began to change. She transformed into a magnificent, giant golden fox with 3 bushy tails, her eyes gleaming a brilliant golden hue. Congratulations, Vivi. You are now the Fox of the Sands. Luffy exclaimed, beaming with pride. A godlike fox with the ability to control sand, create oases, and as the cherry on top, you can command desert animals. In her majestic fox form, Vivi spoke, her voice a unique blend of her new instincts and her own consciousness. Thank you. But this is hard, I'm struggling not to pounce on something. It's like my instincts are telling me to attack smaller prey or something like that. Hancock nodded knowingly. That's how zones work, you gain traits from the animal. Take Nami for example, she can't stop eating sushi and scratching her claws on the ship's mast. Nami, who had been nearby, shot back with a playful glare. Oh, like you're one to talk, you sweet obsessed Medusa. In reaction, Hancock morphed her hair into living snakes, eyes narrowing in a teasing challenge. What was that, cat girl? Nami, ready for a playful fight, shifted into her panther hybrid mode, fur bristling. You want to fight, snake hair? Hey, calm down, you two. Luffy interjected, stepping between them. He turned to Vivi, offering her encouragement. Okay, now try to assess your hybrid mode. It will give you more control. Vivi nodded, focusing on Luffy's advice. She began to concentrate again, and her form shifted once more. She transformed into her hybrid mode, now towering over 2.5 meters tall with fox-like ears adorning her head and a fox-like appearance. Her golden fur shone brightly, and her 3 fluffy tails swished behind her triumphantly. Later that day, Nami sat in the map room, her brow furrowed in concentration as she calculated their current course. Luffy told me to follow the log pose, and by this map of the Grand Line, we're heading for an island called Little Garden, she murmured to herself. As she traced the route, her mind wandered, and a sigh escaped her lips. Man, how do I tell him and Hancock what I feel? I mean, they're getting married, and how can I just say I have a crush on both of them? What's wrong with me? It's bad enough I have a crush on Luffy, but on Hancock as well. She was deep in thought, scribbling something down on a piece of paper when Alvida walked into the map room. Startled, Nami panicked. Alvida, what is the matter? Alvida, with a knowing smile, replied, nothing, I just wanted to know our course. You seem lost in thought. In a rush, Nami replied, who, me? No. But before she could hide it, Alvida's eyes fell upon the notes scattered on the table and the paper that had slipped to the floor. Picking it up, she began to read aloud, her expression shifting. Luffy, Hancock, and Nami together forever. Nami's face turned bright red, embarrassment flooding her cheeks as she realized what Alvida had found. No, please don't go around telling anyone. She pleaded, flailing her arms in protest. Alvida chuckled, amused by Nami's flustered state. Oh, looks like someone has a crush on the captain and the vice captain. Stop it, Nami exclaimed, her voice a mix of desperation and humiliation. Please, Alvida, don't tell anybody. Alvida smiled knowingly and replied, okay, I won't say anything. But you should consider telling them how you feel at least. Nami shook her head vehemently. No way. Out of the question. I don't want to look like some kind of pervert. Plus, they're engaged. Alvida raised an eyebrow, a hint of concern in her tone. Fine, do what you want. Your secret is safe with me. But I suggest you don't suppress your feelings. You never know when you'll regret it. With that, Alvida walked out of the room, leaving Nami to her thoughts. She sat at the table, the weight of her emotions pressing down on her. Should she tell them? The thought terrified her. What if I look like a pervert? She muttered to herself, her mind racing as she considered the possible outcomes of revealing her feelings. Later that evening, the Shadow Dragon pirates and Vivi gathered around the table for dinner, laughter and chatter filling the air. Vivi, still getting accustomed to her new abilities from the Kitsune no Mi, found herself developing an unexpected craving for poultry. To her delight, there was a generous spread of roasted turkey on the table. Kaya took a bite and exclaimed, "Wow, Sanji, this tastes great." "Thanks," Sanji replied proudly, a grin on his face as he pulled away from the stove. Luffy took a hearty bite, nodding enthusiastically. "Yeah, it's delicious. Where did you get a turkey this big?" Sanji shrugged. "Pudding cooked this dish, actually." Vivi chimed in, her eyes sparkling with delight. "Well, it's delicious, Pudding. What kind of bird is this? It tastes a little gamey." Pudding smiled compliment. "Oh, that's Miss Friday," she said, a hint of mischief in her tone. The table went silent for a moment, shock settling over the crew as they processed what she had just said. Faces turned incredulous. Luffy was the first to speak. "Wait, what? You mean, this is one of our prisoners?" Pudding nodded, her expression unbothered. "I was bringing them dinner when this bird tried to attack me, but I overpowered it. Since Sanji told me not to waste food, I decided to cook it." The other Shadow Dragon pirates exchanged slightly disturbed glances but soon returned to eating. As the absurdity of the situation sunk in, a chuckle spread around the table. Luffy shrugged nonchalantly, taking another bite of his turkey. "Oh well, one less prisoner to feed," he said with a grin, his carefree attitude infectious. Vivi, caught between amusement and horror at the revelation, joined in the laughter. "I can't believe I'm eating one of the unluckies. This is so surreal."